Hi folks, sorry I've not been around for a while, but I've been rather tied up with various things to do with this lockdown business, but I have a few things to show you, and I'm going to start with this. This is the Brother 1508 Slipjoint knife in white smooth bone. Now, many of you will know that Brother have been around for a while. They're a Chinese maker that has made a number of knives which have been quite attractive. Most of them, though, have been, although they're in a traditional style, have tended to be lockback knives. This nice knife, it's got white smooth bone. We've got steel bolsters, steel liners, steel back spring, beautiful fit and finish. What I suppose sets it aside from many traditionals of late is that instead of coming with either CV steel or stainless steel, surgical steel, 420 steel, 440A steel, or whatever, this actually has VG10, which is a good quality Japanese steel. In fact, not so very long ago, it would almost have rated as a super steel. Certainly it's very good in terms of, you often find it in terms of kitchen knives and things like that, and in many respects this has a lot in common with a kitchen knife. You have a pretty much full flat grind blade that's very sharp with a nice clean straight edge. The blade has a satin finish, swedge on either side, not quite symmetrical, I don't think, but not bad. There's nothing really to criticise in terms of fit and finish and build quality. In terms of the bone, you could maybe argue that joint there by my thumb isn't absolutely perfect, but it's pretty bloody good, and it's certainly as good as you would expect from a case knife. There's no gapping in it. The walk and talk, the action is pretty good. It has a half stop. I can do this without cutting my fingers off, which is, I could do it without cutting my fingers off and keeping it in the camera is an interesting thing. Good snap on close. And I'll say a nice half stop, good and solid. A good snap on open. So it's a nice knife of decent quality. The only quality issue I have, and it's a minor gripe, certainly the prices, I wouldn't say that bone is exceptional. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but it's just not exceptional. It is bested, I would say, by a Rough Rider. And this particular Rough Rider here, the Elephant's Toenail, is a sub £20 knife. I would also say that the Juliet by Boca Magnum, or Magnum by Boca, is probably better bone. I'm not quite sure why it's screwed on and not pinned on. I think that's inappropriate for a pinned knife. But, I think that compares well with the Brother. The only, perhaps, thought there is that the Brother, although it's only $30, this is only £17. So it's barely half. Now this is not VG10 steel. This is, can't remember, 440A. I thought it was 440A. I was going to say that, and then I thought I'll embarrass myself by being completely wrong. So it's 440A, so that's the same. So, we're the same ballpark as that Rough Rider there. Now, the knife I would really compare this with, though, I think, may not have white bone, but the one that this is screaming out as for comparison to is the Mikata work knife by Rough Rider, which is the RR2038 in China. Again, I suppose it's for before 40A steel, I would expect, doesn't it? Unlike you expect with a Rough Rider, it's going to be stamped on the blade there when it's not. But I've no reason to suspect it's anything else. I think this is probably the best quality knife that Rough Rider have turned out in a long time. But we have very similar blades. We again have swedges on this one. We have, on the Rough Rider, we have got lined bolsters, but again with steel. We've got brass back springs, brass liners. Now actually I like brass liners and I have a good reason for it. In a traditional knife, you know, washers or bearings, that is the lubrication between the blade and the handle, and brass is naturally acts as a sort of natural washer. So actually I quite like that. In terms of handle shape, the Rough Rider is a sway back, and this is a, I don't know what you call it, a sway forward. But they're mirrors of each other in terms of the handle. You know, you look at them like that, you think the knives are pointing blade to blade, but they're edge to edge, but they're not. They're actually opposite. A slightly heavier blade, obviously, on the Rough Rider. This, in terms of price, is probably slightly cheaper, but then we're talking about my black micarta instead of bone. And you can have that, the brother in carbon fibre, for the same money. So, you know, one could argue about the value. You know, this is actually quite considerably cheaper than that. It's a good £5 in it. In terms of another size competitor there, or size comparator rather, and one that's probably more relevant all round, is the Victorinox Pioneer. It's actually Pioneer X, but it's the same length. This is the 93mm body. And in terms of raw blade length, up against the ruler measurements, you'll see that the blade here is bang on the 3-inch mark. The cutting edge is 2 3/4. It's absolutely straight edge, so there's no getting away from the there's no, you know, other way to measure the cutting edge. It's a straight edge, so we are just over the 2 3/4-inch length, or in millimeters. Does that give us 70mm, so 6mm short of the legal limit, which makes that perfectly safe to carry. Because that's been the criticism with a lot of the brother knives to date. You can't carry them in public because, in the UK, because you need to have a good reason, and one would have to question why you would need, on a knife of this type and style, as many of the predecessor knives have been, why you would need a lock back, and what would be the good reason that says you need it. It's not because you've got a knife that's for a particular task or whatever. This is a general EDC type pocket knife, to argue that it has to have a lock. Other than the general rule that a locking knife is probably safer than a slip joint knife in general, there's no specific reason why you would need, or that you could give to a judge, and it's sufficient to keep you out of trouble. Whether you'd be stopped, I don't know. But anyway, so it's nice to see brother coming out with a knife that is carryable in the UK. Now, I always said if they came out with a slip joint knife, I would buy it straight away. They came out with this, I ordered it. The first time I saw it, which was on Paddy's channel, it arrived about 3 weeks later. It was pretty good. A couple of the other things I ordered took a bit longer. Anyway, so I probably said enough, as much as there is to say about this knife. I say it's a good knife. It's well made. My only criticism, if I have one at all, is perhaps the quality of the bone is not. It's not beautiful, but it's there's nothing actually wrong with it. So anyway, if you like this sort of stuff, please tick the thumbs up button on the screen. And if you'd like to see more of this, and there is more of this, including another brother knife that's going to come shortly, then please feel free to subscribe. Thank you very much, one and all. Goodbye.